Are we good? Can you hear me? Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Hi, mate. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Perfect, yes. Good to go.
Yeah, that's good. Technology, eh?
Crazy.
Technology.
It's crazy.
Okay. Um, you'll see from my program, my profile, I haven't got my name up. So I'm Mike. So how do you do? There's a handshake. Yeah?
Nice to meet you. There
How
it
you
is.
doing? Yeah, okay.
I'm good. I'm
That's
schmoozy.
it. This is my first. Yeah. Okay. This is my first proper debate on this.
Okay. Welcome.
Um,
Welcome. Welcome to the world
okay.
of Call Out.
Welcome.
Nice
Yeah.
area.
I'm going. Okay, thank you. I'm going to be blunt, and I'm just going to sort of read you my opening statement
Please do. Speak
of
from the
what
heart.
my way that I view the way that I view things about
All
Israel.
right.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
um, Israel Israel is a rogue state. It is run by a government whose policy is to occupy its indigenous population and subject it to inhuman treatment. It flagrantly violates international law and makes no attempt to broker peace. It is a nuclear armed state which has not signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. That actually makes its purchase of arms from the USA an illegal transaction under US law. The occupation, and I include Gaza, is good for its arms industry, its weapons being regularly tested on live humans, i.e. the Arab population of the land of Palestine. It uses military battlefield weapons like phosphorus bombs and fletchet rounds on civilians, which is a war crime. Elements of its own government, the education minister, the agricultural minister, and its justice minister, to name just three, call for the most draconian measures against Palestinians, including expulsion and genocide. These actions are all war crimes. Its continued building of racial colonies in the West Bank and East Jerusalem is in direct contravention of international law and the Geneva Convention. I do not condemn the entire Israeli population, rather its machinery of state and a not insignificant element of an extreme far right.
Okay. I jotted down some notes on what you just said, so I can try to really answer
Okay.
all of your opening statement. So the way I
Okay.
like to do things on here, it's not my first rodeo, as they say. Instead of really going for an opening statement, I like to really just answer back and kind of just speak more, like have a dialogue.
Sure. Yeah,
So just to start,
that's fine.
I want to start by defining what a rogue state is. According to the definition of everybody, what a rogue state is, according to the U.S., according to the UN, there are 4 rogue states currently in the world. That is Iran, North Korea, Sudan, and Syria. Those are the 4 rogue states that are considered to be rogue states and or pariah states, because the term rogue state really isn't a used term in society. Pariah state is more of the word, or criminal state. A rogue state behaves in ways that are unexpected, uncommon, aberrant, or destructive. That's one definition. A second definition is a state that's threatening world peace. And the third definition is a state that restricts human rights, sponsors terrorism, and seeks to proliferate WMDs. So, according to those definitions of what a rogue state is, Israel would not be a rogue state because A, Israel does not act in an unexpected, uncommon, aberrant, or destructive way. Israel, like you said, that the actions of Israel, we'll get to that, but for every action, there's a reaction, and Israel tends to react. Israel doesn't act, Israel always reacts, but we'll get to that. If we're going to talk about a state that sponsors terrorism, then that's exactly what Israel isn't. So that's another reason why they wouldn't be a rogue state. And another one is restricting human rights. Now, that's a big one, and I know that you're going to hit me on Israel restricting human rights based on the way that Israel is portrayed in the media. But I'm going to answer that one. That's what I really want to focus on specifically, but we'll get back to that. Jot that down. We're going to get back to it. Make a note. A pariah state, if we're going to use the proper lingo, it's a nation considered to be an outcast. Its policies and actions are unacceptable, and generally, pariah states are the Ottoman Empire and the Soviet Union. That's generally how people would define a pariah state. So, based on these two definitions of what a rogue state versus a pariah state is, I know that Israel is not a rogue state. Being that the topic of our debate is Israel is a rogue state, it 100% isn't and cannot be a rogue state solely based on definitions. Now let's try to break down what you said in your opening statement. You said that Israel mistreats its indigenous people. Now, number one, if we're going to talk about mistreatment of indigenous people, I'll hit you with the US, Canada, and Australia as three nations that have mistreated their indigenous people. Thus, if we're going to call Israel a rogue state, we'd have to call the US, Canada, and Australia a rogue state as well for their mistreatment of indigenous people. Number two, you mentioned that Israel has not attempted or has made no attempt to broker peace. The one thing Israel does on the regular is try to broker peace. Israel, since their beginning, when they, I guess, won the War of Independence in 48, won all the land, because that's generally how war works. If you win a war, you win the land that you conquer. And in order to broker peace, they give back their land. On a regular basis, Israel, their prime ministers, their presidents have tried to give back the land in order to broker peace. And yet the other side only wants more and more and more and more and more. There is no thank you. It's please, sir, may I have some more, which is one thing that got Oliver Twist in trouble. Number three, you mentioned that Israel is a nuclear state that hasn't signed the non-proliferation agreement. Technically, Israel isn't a nuclear state. There has been no ever confirmation that Israel is nuclear. And I know I saw that face right there, but Israel has never stated that they are nuclear. So if we're going on the technicalities, Israel is not nuclear, specifically on the technicalities. Now, do I say that they don't have nuclear weapons? I won't say that, because I try not to lie. But are they a nuclear state? Technically, no. Number four, the occupation. You keep on using the word occupation, and occupation is a tough word. I don't really want to tackle that subject, because that really isn't the topic of our debate, that whether or not Israel is an occupation. I think that would be a great debate for another time on whether or not Israel is an occupation. So let's skip that one. You mentioned war crimes.
Well, I think we need to discuss that.
I do also. I think that the idea of Israel being an occupation is something that is very much overblown and something that is very much taken out of proportion. But for our debate right now, in terms of the topic of Israel being a rogue state, I don't think occupation has anything to do with it. If it does, we can get back to it. But I want to tackle war crimes right now. You said that they use phosphorus on civilians. Now let's understand what a civilian is. A civilian is, to be honest, you and I. We are civilians. We live our lives. We work. I'm in college. I go to study. I work when I'm not studying. When I'm not working or studying, I play baseball. I'm an NCAA athlete. That's what I do. We are civilians. A civilian is somebody who isn't a criminal. Now, when Israel is using their phosphorus or whatever you say that they're using, generally they're using that to break up riots. Now, what happens in a riot? You have a bunch of Arab teenagers or a bunch of Arab adults or a bunch of Arab kids, whatever it is, flinging rocks at soldiers, throwing Molotov cocktails at soldiers. I know this because I was an IDF soldier. I was a paratrooper, and I have been part of these riots. And the number one code of conduct in the Israeli army is we never shoot first. And that's the last thing that I want to talk about, the action versus reaction. That you say that Israel tries out their weapons on Gaza or on the Arab population. That's not true. The war in 2014, Operation Protective Edge, Tzuk Eitan in Hebrew, was started with the kidnapping of 3 innocent Israeli civilians standing at a bus stop. And when they were captured, Israel reacted by going into different Arab towns and trying to find their civilians and bring them back before they were killed. But you indulged in something called
collective punishments, mass arrests, which is the sort of thing that the German occupation forces in northern France did, and you know that's illegal under international law. That's a war crime. Collective punishments are a war crime. The British did it in Palestine in the mid 1930s.
So to answer that, the mass arrests, aren't made by going into a town and going, you're arrested, you're arrested, you're arrested, you're arrested. This isn't an Oprah Winfrey show. You get a car, you get a car, you get a car, or you get arrested, you get arrested, you get arrested. That's not how things work. People are only arrested by the IDF and by the Israeli police if A, they are standing in the way of justice, meaning if you ask them to do something for you and they refuse, it's detaining, and which is the same thing that every single police force or army does. That is completely allowed according to every single convention, according to every single people.
It doesn't happen in Europe, Shmo. It doesn't happen in Europe. No.
I think
the other thing that it does is, yeah. I wanted to sort of like just go back over what you said, really. I don't want to talk over you because it's technically it's not easy. It's a bit like, you know, there's a slight delay. Do you want to just sort of sum up what your intro bit is, because then I'll come back to you with some of the things and just counter some things.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah? So my intro was just countering everything that you said. I haven't really made my points yet about why we're not a rogue state. I was just countering in terms of war crimes. There are no war crimes if you're reacting to somebody attacking you. That's not considered a war crime. Israel has never used weapons of mass destruction on anybody, ever. Israel does not go out and just arrest people out of nowhere. People that are arrested are either standing in the way of justice or people that are legitimate, that Israel thinks are legitimate threats, or that Israel believes we're part of the terrorist attack or part of the terrorist cell. So that's what I'm saying in terms of the war crimes, that there are no war crimes. I'd love for you to counter that, and then I will sit down and really make my point about why Israel is not a rogue state.
Okay. Well, the first thing that strikes me is your immediate claim of, you know, well, if we're going to call Israel a rogue state, then you have to apply the same logic to the USA, to Canada, to Australia, etc., etc. If you're going to go that far, you could say the same of the British Empire, etc., because, you know, it colonized land. You know, there's no bones about it. The difference is that, you know, yes, you know, America was colonized. They caused the destruction of millions of Native Americans. The difference is that we don't do that anymore. We have reached a point where, you know, we say, no, we cannot do that. You know, you tell me, how many laws are there in the United States of America? I mean, I don't mean individual laws. I mean, you know, is there one sort of law for European ancestral white Americans? Is there another law for black African Americans? Another one for Mexicans? How many laws are there?
Well, just to counter that by asking you another question, does that happen in Israel? Is there a different law for everybody that lives there?
I didn't say no. Well, I mean, you tell me. Okay, so in the whole of the land of what I call the land of Palestine, which is you know, divided into the state of Israel and the occupied territories, you know, how many laws are there for the people within that geographical area that is controlled by the state of Israel?
Well, according to the state of Israel, that everybody that lives in the state of Israel has the same law. Everybody has to follow the same everything. That's just the way it is.
Yeah. What about the people in the what you call Judea? What you would probably I won't obviously I don't want to try to jump the gun and assume, but what I hear a lot of Israeli people calling Judea and Samaria, what I call the West Bank, Palestine. What law are the Palestinians subject to who live there?
So actually, I was posted there, so I would know what their law is, I guess, if you want to call it that. There is no different law. The difference over there is that the Arabs in the West Bank have their own autonomy. They are allowed to live on their own in Ramallah, in Jenin. They are allowed to live on their own. The Israeli army does not enter. The Israeli army does not enter into Ramallah or Jenin. They don't.
Are you talking about? No, you're talking about area A and B, aren't you?
That's the one in.
You're talking about area A and B.
Hebron.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
I'm talking about
so the Palestinians who live within the militarily controlled, occupied areas of the West Bank.
What do you mean by military control?
Well, Area C, for instance. If they throw a rock, okay, if a kid throws a rock, under whose judiciary does he come under?
Well, to be honest, if in that statement, if a kid throws a rock and throws it at an Israeli soldier who is in the area, the Israeli soldiers will arrest that kid.
Okay, so okay, just stay with me now. Okay, so what if he throws a rock at an Israeli civilian?
Mm-hmm.
Who would deal with him? Who would arrest him and take him away and lock him up without his parents and all that sort of thing?
Where are we right now? Where are we currently standing that this rock throwing occurred?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just saying, okay, let's say a kid throws a rock, a Palestinian kid throws a rock at an Israeli kid. Who arrests him and what judiciary system does he come under? Does he go? Is he taken to the Palestinian police? What happens to him? Does he go to a Palestinian court to be dealt with?
So they don't deal with that. I mean, if we're going to be, like you said at the beginning, we're going to be very blunt. Okay, nobody has ever seen that occur. You throw it at an Israeli kid if you're in an Israeli territory, because technically you're supposed to be looking out for your own area. If it's a Palestinian area that Israel has given to the Palestinians to live in, the Palestinian police should be policing that. But if you want to look, absolutely a given. But if you want to look back at Palestinian police policing those areas, I will throw you back into the 1990s. There were 2 Israeli soldiers who accidentally wandered into a Palestinian area in a place that the Palestinian police were supposed to have autonomy and supposed to be on top of everything. And these 2 Israeli soldiers wandered in, and a mob of Arabs actually came down upon them, brutally murdered them, dragged their bodies, mutilated them, dragged their bodies through the streets on the backs of motorcycles. The Israeli government, the Israeli police, the Israeli army contacted the Palestinian police, the Palestinian government, to do something about it, and they said, "Oh, sorry, our hands are tied," or whatever. So the fact is that it's not a fair statement. It's not a fair question, because if we're in America, and I know you said locked up without his parents, if we're in America and you commit a felony, it doesn't matter what age you are, you're going to go to juvie. If you commit a felony, you're going to go to regular.
Yeah, but
you're going to be without your parents.
Yeah. The difference is, Shmoo, now, if you don't want to agree with me, I mean, that's up to you. But this is based on the information that I have from Amnesty International, from the Red Cross, from the United Nations, from B'Tselem. You can pick up some examples of sort of, bad things that have happened to Israeli soldiers. And I could pick out loads of horrible things that have happened to Palestinian civilians. We could do that all night. But the essence of it is this, that if a Palestinian child, or an adult for that matter, commits a crime in the occupied territories, he will be dealt with under Israeli military law. If an Israeli kid is guilty of the same crime, he will be dealt with under the Israeli civil law authorities. And that is the difference.
Now, it's actually, that's not the case. There's actually much more of a leniency towards a Palestinian kid. If you remember last year, there was a whole big talk about how an Israeli civilian may or may not have murdered an Arab kid who may or may not have been homosexual. And if you remember, the Israeli government came down very, very, very hard on, I believe, 4 or 5 Israeli citizens, detained them without having any information as to whether or not they did it, detained them in the same way that people may think that they detain Palestinian civilians. Turns out in the end that it was a Palestinian who had murdered this child and set him ablaze because he was homosexual and because he, quote unquote, put a stain on their family. And I actually want to talk about that more as in terms of why Israel isn't a rogue state, that exact statement. But Israel does things the exact same way. If an Israeli child is suspected of doing something, they will be thrown in lockup the same way that any other person is. You commit a crime, you go to jail. The end. Same thing in Monopoly, same thing in life, same thing in the United States, same thing in Britain.
Okay, I mean, I don't think I'm going to convince you, Shmoo, but I mean, the evidence is to the contrary of that. There was, I mean, like there's something like 400 children under the age of 16 in Israeli custody presently. There's, I mean, we see videos every day. I get reports, I get emails straight from Gaza and the West Bank of all sorts of things that are going on all the time. And, I am firmly convinced, and so are millions of other people around the world, that Palestinian inhabitants of the West Bank are treated very, very much differently to the Israeli settlers who live in the racial colonies in the West Bank. I mean, I think let's not talk about that or not, because we're going to have to just agree to disagree. But I just want to come back to one of the other points that you said about when you said, Israel never attacks, it only reacts. Well, I mean, I dispute that.
I didn't say
but
never.
Then you also...
I didn't say never.
Okay, never mind. Okay. Never, yeah. Anyway, but the thing you said, the thing is, if you win a war, you conquer territory, and that's it. That's your territory. No, I'm sorry, but that's not it. We fought World War II, which was an absolute disaster for humanity. And after it, the civilized nations, so-called, got together and said, look, we can't have this happen again. And something called the United Nations was formed, and they put down some rules, and one of which was, I think it's resolution, is it 242? I can't remember, but that the territory can no longer hang on, I'm just trying to think the right word for it. The acquisition of territory through military conquest will no longer be permitted under international law.
I didn't hear a word that.
So I'm sorry. I mean, okay, I'll try that again. Okay, the UN resolution, I think it was 242, decreed that the acquisition of territory through military conquest can no longer be accepted as a legitimate claim to land, to territory. And I, we live by the rule of law, and I'm sorry, but that's it as far as I'm concerned.
So correct. If it was only through the act of a military defeat, then yes, you would be correct. But it wasn't only through the act of a military defeat. It was actually given to us by none other than the British. I believe it was the Balfour Declaration that gave Israel to the Jews and made Israel into a Jewish state.
But no, it didn't. No, Shmoo, I've got to stop you there. Right, the Balfour Declaration, which was written in 1917. In fact, you could really call it the David Lloyd George Declaration, because it was Lloyd George's driving force behind it. The Balfour Declaration did not give the land of Palestine to the Jews, and certainly didn't promise a state. It was a very carefully worded document, and I know it very well because I've studied it very deeply. It said the British government will look favourably upon establishing, now this is very important, establishing a homeland in the state of Palestine. Okay, just that sentence alone. I mean, that's important, because it is not the home; it is a home in Palestine, provided the rights and freedoms of the indigenous populations are not harmed in any way. And in fact, when Israel eventually became a state in May 1948, that was actually one of the conditions laid down the UN, the proviso that the United Nations decreed at the time. They said that we recognise the state of Israel, but there is this little caveat that is still there, that the rights of the indigenous population must be respected. And I mean, I'm just paraphrasing, but basically, you know what I mean, that they mustn't be harmed or moved in any way. So, that really, I mean, this is probably a thing for another debate, but that could actually call into question the legitimacy of the state of Israel. But
I want to ask you if
you want to talk about the Balfour.
One second, we don't need to talk about the Balfour Declaration. We're not talking about whether or not Israel's a state. We're talking about whether or not it's a rogue state. But I want to ask you. You said that Israel, it could call into the legitimacy of the Israeli state due to the fact that they attacked the population. Who attacked whom in 1948?
Right. Well.
I believe it was the army.
1948 is a bad place to start.
Jordan and Iraq, which marched to the British.
Yes.
Man.
Right. Okay, hang on. Let me see. One day, five Arab armies attacked the state. Is that right? Yeah. Hang on. Let me just have a look in my book. No, you see, I've read it a little bit differently. The so-called war of 1948 is something which that's become sort of like a modern myth, really. You have the whole conflict started way before that time, but it started in earnest in November 1947. I'm sure you know that the petition plan was put on the table. Yeah, so 1947, I think it was November 1947, the plan was put on the table and it was offered to the Arab population and to the Jewish population. And of course, we get this again and again. The Jews accepted it and the Arabs rejected it. So it's their fault that that's it. Well, one could ask the question: why should any peoples be asked to give up more than half of their state? Because they were actually the Jewish section was given about 55% of the land, and the Arab about 45%. Even though the Arab population was higher, the Jewish section had the better land, the better water resources. Of course, the British, the Western powers, wanted to make sure that Haifa was in the section that was controlled by the Jewish, the new Jewish state, because Haifa is the main oil terminal route from the Iraqi oil fields, which was also under British control. Okay, so 1947, so November. So basically, the Jews said yes, the Arabs said no. So from that moment onwards, the Jewish Zionist groups, which were very well organized because they'd been armed by the British for a couple of decades, they considered the partition plan null and void, and they immediately started to terrorize and attack the villages in the western side, the western northern side of what is now Israel. In fact, by May of 1948, now this is before the war started, already 350,000 Arabs, Palestinian Arabs, had been driven out of their houses, and more than 100 villages had been destroyed by that time. So, you can't say, oh, the war that suddenly seen 48. The Arab armies that attacked in 1948 only did so after all that destruction had been done. And of course, the state was declared in May 1948. And then the Arab armies attacked. Now, I will let you speak in a moment, I promise. We have this picture of, the poor little Jewish state being attacked by these mighty Arab armies, which of course is just complete nonsense. There was no Arab army as such. It was a hodgepodge of Egypt, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, is that the one? Yeah. No, and Jordan, of course.
Yeah.
Now, out of those 5 armies, the only army that was anywhere near capable of taking on the fledgling Jewish state at that moment was Jordan. I say that in tongue in cheek. The fledgling Jewish state. The Jewish state was very well armed, very well led, very well equipped. The Jordanian army was led by the British, particularly by General Bagot Glum, I think his name. Glubb, his name was, I think. The Israeli state knew very well that the Jordanian army was very much an army to be reckoned with, and they didn't want to fight it. So they actually did a deal with Jordan, and they said, right, we will take we will take most of Israel, but you can have the West Bank, and that's the deal they did. And in the middle, the poor Palestinians were just squeezed between the two. So it was only after further fighting. In fact, I think it was up to 1949. At the end of 1949, almost 800,000 Palestinian Arabs had been expelled from their houses, moved into other areas, into refugee camps, either in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Jordan. Sorry.
I was just saying. Well, first of all,
only by Israel.
I'm saying that I believe that out of all of the Arab states in the region, of which there is one Jewish state, which is Israel, and there's maybe 25 Arab states in the region, there's only one state that has taken in Palestinian Arab refugees. There's only one. Israel.
Which one's that? Hang on. Only one state that has taken in Palestinian Arab refugees. What you mean? And made Palestinian? And made them citizens of their?
Have given them rights. Have given them opportunities, etc. I mean, how many? You said there were 800,000 Palestinian Arab refugees.
Where did they? No.
What was that? What was the number you said? 800,000.
Well, okay. There was almost 800,000 Palestinians were moved off of their lands, driven out of their villages into the West Bank, into Gaza, into refugee camps. Basically, they were pushed out of their homes. I mean, they went all well. They went to a variety of places, basically, but they were pushed
Jordan
out of their
homes.
Jordan
didn't accept them. Lebanon didn't accept them. Egypt didn't want them. Syria didn't want them. Nobody in the region wanted them. Nobody in the region allowed them refugees in.
Two things. Okay, why should they? Is the first thing. Okay, because they have a home. Okay, and the Geneva Convention states that civilians that have been moved out of a war zone have the legal right to go back to their homes after the hostilities have ceased, which of course brings us on to the occupation, because that's why Israel wants to keep the occupation going, because it's a military situation, it's a security situation, and they can technically get away with all that. But to say that no.
When you have people throwing Molotov cocktails at your cars and throwing rocks at you, which break windows, hit you in the head, etc., and you got terrorists coming in and stabbing people, and you got terrorists blowing themselves up and shooting homemade weapons, I would consider that a conflict, and I don't think that would stop no matter how much land you give them, because I believe it was Begin who offered 75 to 80% of Israel proper back to the Arabs, and they said no. And on top of that, it's not even that. It's a rogue state, like we said before, is a state that's aberrant or destructive or threatening to world peace. The fact is, though, that Israel has tried time and again for peace. And the fact is that time and again, the Arabs have said no to that peace. And that is a fact. Regardless of occupation, regardless of what's happening.
Okay, right.
That's a fact.
Yeah. Okay. So do you mean you're talking about the the offer of 97% of 22% of historic Palestine. Is that the offer that you mean?
Real quick, let's talk about historic Palestine, because you keep on mentioning Palestinians. What is a Palestinian?
Yeah. Right. A Palestinian is a person whose homeland is the land of
And
Palestine.
Who is included in that statement?
Who is included in that statement? Well, all the Palestinians who live there, and all the approximately 6 million Palestinians who live in refugee camps. Those refugee camps being located in Lebanon, Jordan, the countries that you said didn't accept any Palestinian refugees. There's nearly 6 million of there's nearly 6 million of them living in those areas. Now, I know they're not citizens of those countries. I know they're living in refugee camps, but they have the legal right to go back to their homes within the land of Palestine.
You forgot something very key. Wait,
I know you got. Oh, come on.
Palestinians, which is the Palestinian people, are an ethno-national group comprising the modern descendants of the people who have lived in Palestine over the centuries, including the Jews and the Samaritans, who today are largely culturally and linguistically Arab, who are Arabs. So, Palestine and Palestinians include Jews and include Arabs, which is why Palestinians is not a... One second. I think I get my 2 minutes at this point. Palestinians is not, as people use it nowadays, to only mean Arabs. Palestinian Arabs are Arabs. The term Palestinian really came about with the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PLO, whatever it is, Yasser Arafat. That's where the term Palestinian really came into effect. It came into effect when the Arabs living in that region decided, we want people to have sympathy for us, so let's start calling ourselves Palestinians, because that sounds more like the state of Palestine. The state of Palestine was never home to specifically Jews or specifically Arabs. It was always mixed. In fact, if you want to look into the Bible, I really don't want to bring this in, but the Bible has Jews living in what is nowadays Israel. It also has other nations living in what is nowadays Israel. That's what the Bible says. You can't dispute that. That's written in the Bible. But regardless.
So what?
That's what I'm saying. I don't want to bring the Bible.
Bible's not a historic document.
I don't want to bring the Bible.
The thing is, Shmoo, I mean, I made no reference. No, good.
I'm not bringing the Bible into it.
I made no reference. No, okay, good. There you are. Thumbs up.
Not bringing it.
Okay.
What I'm saying is this lag is killing me. What I'm saying is that Palestinian is a really awful term to keep on using. You're using it. The world uses it over and over and over and over. For Palestinian is not one and the same as Arab. Arab and Palestinian are not one and the same. Palestinians can also refer to Jews because, as we just said before, on what the definition of a Palestinian is, it's somebody that lives in Palestine, or not somebody that lives in currently, or who did culturally live in Palestine. And culturally, we know that the Jews lived in Palestine. Not even the Arabs dispute that. The Arabs do not dispute that the Jews had a temple in Jerusalem. No. Nobody disputes that. So the fact is that if you want to call it that, both have a claim to the state. But I want to go back to what our debate is. The debate title is Israel is a rogue state. I'm debating against it. You're debating for it. We're not debating whether or not Israel has legitimacy to be a state. We're not debating whether or not Israel has a desire for peace. We're not debating that. We're debating whether or not Israel is a rogue state. And the fact is, according to the definition and according to the facts, Israel is not a rogue state. Israel is not considered a rogue state by the UN. Israel is not considered a rogue state by the UK. Israel is not considered a rogue state by the US. Israel is not considered a rogue state. We defined what a rogue state is. We showed what a rogue state is, which is Iran, North Korea, Sudan, and Syria. We showed what a pariah state is. We showed what a criminal state is. And this is, like I said, I answered your opening statement. Now I want to give my points as to why Israel is not a rogue state. Because what we were talking about before is whether or not Israel wants peace, or whether or not Israel has legitimacy, or whether or not Israel is an occupation, or whether or not Israel kills civilians. That's not what this debate is. If we want to debate that, I would love to debate that. and be really on that. But what is a rogue state?
Okay.
That is a criminal state. A criminal state is one that gives aid to terrorists. Israel does not give aid to terrorists. Check. Now, if we're going to talk about, like I said before, Israel does not give aid to terrorists. Israel is completely against terrorists. People that do give aid to terrorists, and it has been proven time and time again, Hamas, Hezbollah, the PLO, they're all terrorist organizations according to the U.S., according to the FBI. If you look at their terrorist,
no, they're not. The PLO is not a terrorist organization.
No, the PLO is not a terrorist organization. They support terrorists. You didn't hear what I said.
Well, why did you say it was then?
I said they support terrorists.
Look, okay, if that's what you said, but I disagree.
It's anyway, a factual statement, though.
The CIA supports terrorists. The Mossad supports terrorists. Look, Shmoo, I just got to go back to one little thing because I need to nip this in the bud. Just to go back a second. When you're talking about what are Palestinians, what you say, who belongs in the land of Palestine. I didn't make any reference to race at all. I don't think of things in terms of race. I just said Palestinian people. Those Palestinian people, to me, I don't go Arabs, Jews, whatever. I don't take into account their religion. Some are Christian, some are Muslim, some are Jews. I don't care. They were the inhabitants of the land of Palestine. That's all I said. Okay.
Right. No, I asked you about what a Palestinian
to go forward.
You did not once mention Jews or the fact that Jews have a right to even be in Israel whatsoever. No, that's why I asked you the question.
People who lived. I just said people who lived in the land of Palestine,
which includes Jews.
That's all I said.
Does it include Jews?
Yes, some Jews.
Do Jews have a right
to
be in
but
Israel?
Not ones who were not born in Israel. No.
Why not?
Why should they? I mean, well, come on. I mean,
so, where were you? Were you born in the UK? Were you
what
born in the UK?
State? Yes.
Do you have a right to live in America?
Yes.
You don't have a right to live in America.
No, of course
not.
So
you can't immigrate to America and
Why
live
would
there.
I?
You can't do that.
Well, I could apply for immigration to emigrate
Which is
to
the
emigrate to
thing
America.
that
I
Jews
could apply.
So they have a right to live there.
No, it's not. It's not. Excuse me. No. It's not the same at all, Shmoo.
Why?
The chances of me getting it, because first of all, they wouldn't allow me in because I haven't got enough money.
Allow you in where?
And I'm not a brain surgeon or whatever. Pardon? It's what?
They want to allow you to immigrate into America because you don't have enough money?
Correct, yeah. The same goes with New Zealand. I mean, I'll give you an example. My sister and her husband, they wanted to emigrate to New Zealand. This is about 30 years ago. And he's a doctor. And they went for the immigration thing, and they were interviewed, and they said, what's your profession? And he said, oh, I'm a doctor. Expected them to go, oh, great, yes, we want doctors, yes, come on. And they said, no, we don't want your doctors. And it was like, oh, what? Oh, Anyway, they did manage to get in, but the only reason they managed to actually get in is because my sister, his wife, was a qualified midwife. And they said, we need midwives. So, yes, you're welcome. So they live there now. But no, I mean, yes, I could apply to immigrate there, but I wouldn't get in.
That doesn't mean you don't have a right to apply.
No, look, come on, you cannot say, don't tell me that it's the same. Like, if I was Jewish, that, I could get on a plane now and I go to Tel Aviv, I could then go and live in a house that a Palestinian used to, I could live in a house that used to be. I could live in a house that used to be on the land that still belongs to a former resident of Palestine who now lives in a refugee camp. I could do that, and I'd be given financial aid to do that as well. So it's not the same. Come on. I mean, it's daft to say that it's the same thing. It's not. We all know that. We know that, there's the Jewish thing they do. Well, what's the Alea thing? I've made Alea because I'm Jewish by race.
Wait, what was the word? What did you say?
This is called Aliyah or something. Is it?
Aliyah.
Where
Yeah.
Aliyah, forgive me.
It's all good.
So there's no comparison. I mean that's ridiculous.
You can't just apply for Aliyah.
Okay, but look,
there's whatever. But if I recall, I was in the middle of proving why Israel's not a rogue state. I didn't get a chance to do that yet.
Okay.
Okay.
No, you didn't. No. True.
Correct. We've been talking about everything that is not in this debate. We've been talking about is Israel legitimate? We've been talking about is Israel terrorist? We've been talking about does Israel want peace? We haven't talked about whether or not Israel's a rogue state, which it is the definition of this debate. I like to debate on topic, so let's stay on topic.
Okay, that's fine.
Stay on topic. A rogue state. Refugees in Israel. Are they treated well? Are they given an area to live? Are they taken in? Yes. Israel takes in refugees 100%. Check.
From where?
Check. Doesn't matter where. They take in refugees.
From where?
They've taken in Arab refugees.
Have they taken any Syrian? What, Syrian?
Oh, you want to talk about Syrian?
Syrian
let's talk about Syrian. So the Israeli army has
have they taken in Syrian?
One second. The Israeli army has army medics. Now this is documented. This you cannot dispute. The Israeli army has medics. And what does the Israeli army do now that there's this Syrian conflict that's been going on for a while? Israeli army medics are stationed on the Israel-Syrian border, all the time taking fire from the different forces on other sides because they don't like Israel either. But the fact is they're stationed on the Israel border. Any Syrian that is injured or who needs help is allowed to turn to those medics, ask for help, and those medics will 100% without question help them. Surgery, bring them to a hospital, etc.
Well, fine. Wait. That's normal.
No. That's spillover from a conflict.
Do they want a medal for that?
Israel also sends in buses into Syria to bus people out in order to help them, in order to bring them to hospitals, in order to give them medical care. That is not necessary. That is not anything that's necessary of anybody. Israel does that. 2, negotiating with terrorists. Does America negotiate with terrorists? Does the UK negotiate with terrorists? Does any other, as you call it, what do you call it? Liberated country or whatever, or normal country, do they negotiate with terrorists? Do they deal with terrorists? No, Israel does.
What do you mean? Do you mean like when the UK started to talk to the IRA in 1998, I think it was, and eventually got the Good Friday peace agreement, and it transpired that the UK government had been talking to the IRA for many years.
But that's not negotiating.
In fact, the UK government made.
If the IRA came in,
we talk. I mean, like,
if the IRA came in, and kidnapped a soldier of the Queen's Army, would the UK negotiate with them?
Yeah, that's different. That's different.
That's what I'm talking about. Israel negotiates 100%. In order to get their soldiers back. There is never a time. If you want to talk about captured Israeli soldiers, we can talk about the captured Israeli soldiers that started the second Lebanon war. Israel did not start the war. They first tried to get their soldiers back. Hezbollah said no. Israel went to war to get their soldiers back. Gilad Shalit, captured by Hamas. Israel did not go in and start bombing Hamas. Israel went in and started a dialogue with Hamas, eventually giving back over 1,000 Arab terrorists who were captured in their prison for one Gilad Shalit. For the soldiers that started the Lebanon war, they gave back terrorists for their bodies. Because according also to the Geneva Convention, according also to the Red Cross, Israel has a right to go in and see their captured soldiers. Israel has a right to know that their captured soldiers are alive and well. And Israel has a right to the bodies of their dead soldiers. The only side that does that is Israel. That's not occupied. That's not done by the other side, which makes them a rogue state. Which makes anybody that does that a rogue state. Because they're acting in an aberrant, uncommon, destructive, and threatening world peace way.
But Shmoo, we're not talking about other states. I mean, you keep saying about, Israel has the right to do this, the right to do that. Well, the refugees who live in the Lebanese and Jordanian refugee camps have the right to return to their homes. That is enshrined in the Geneva Convention. If you want to play by the rules, play by the ruls.
I'm sorry, you broke up there. I didn't hear what you said. Can you make that point one more time?
Okay. I said that you're citing the rights. That Israel has the right to do this, the right to do that, etc. Which is fine, but you don't seem to count or respect the rights of the the refugees, what I call the Palestinian refugees who live in the Jordanian and Lebanese refugee camps, they have the right under international law and the Geneva Convention to return to their homes.
They also,
what about their rights? Don't they?
They have a right to return to their homes, but not in a terroristic way. If they would return to their homes and not go out and knife a Israeli soldier, or not blow themselves up in a crowded bus or a crowded square, they have a right to return to their homes. The fact is that nobody's stopping them to return to their homes. Israel has never stopped anybody from returning to their homes. That is a fact.
Oh, come on. Oh, Shmoo, look, no.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that the Israeli government has said, yes, all you 5.5 million refugees who live in there, you can all come back to the land of Israel, Palestine? Are you telling me that?
Have they applied to? Have they asked to?
Oh, come on. Yes, of course. They've still got the keys to their houses.
I don't think.
Let's
talk about. You want to talk about the you want to talk about settlers?
You don't think so?
You want to talk about settlers or whatever they are, the occupation? They're not knocking down houses to build new houses. In fact, they're going to areas which are uninhabited and springing up towns in those uninhabited areas and building houses in those uninhabited areas. Gaza was a desolate nothing. Gaza was a desolate nothing.
That's not.
Gaza was desolate. Before they turned it into a metropolis, into a huge area. And I can tell you, I've been in Gaza since then because I was in the war in 2014. Gaza is not the same way that the Jews left it or that the Israelis left it when they left. So you want to talk about going in and taking Jews' homes? Israelis that lived in Gaza still have the keys to their homes. Who took them out? Not the Palestinian Arabs. The Israeli government said, we're going to give back Gaza as goodwill, as something nice for you guys. That's what we're going to do. That's what Gaza was. But the fact is that if you want to talk about being a rogue state, Israel is not a rogue state. You cannot prove that Israel is a rogue state. You can't prove it.
Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, we could talk about Gaza and all that sort of nonsense, but if we want to keep on track, then let's do that about the rogue state business.
I keep on bringing it back. I just want to hear proof that
Israel. No, that's fine. No, that's fine. Yeah, but
I want to hear
the thing is, just because
I want to hear that. I want to hear proof.
Yeah, but Shmoo, just hang on a sec. I'm not going to respond to you on the Gaza thing because that's another debate. That's another thing, and I'm not agreeing with you on the Gaza situation at all. The rogue state thing, okay. And I know that Israel is a nuclear armed state and it has not signed the non-proliferation treaty. The fact that the USA and the UK don't consider it a rogue state, I mean, to me, that's just nonsense. I mean, I do, and many UK citizens do the same. I don't care. I really don't care. I believe
but that's what we keep on bringing up. That's what we keep on bringing up. If you want to talk about a world power, you can't. Listen, we all have our own opinions. That's why this is the thing. The fact of a debate is, you're not going to change my mind. I'm not going to change your mind. That's how a debate.
But I'll give you some reasons. Yeah, but I know. But I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you some reasons, though. I'm trying to give you some reasons.
It's factual that it's not a rogue state because according to the law, it's not a rogue state.
Well. This is it. Like you keep coming back to the rules. The UN doesn't think it's a rogue state, so we believe the UN. But when the UN says to Israel, you are building settlements illegally, you need to stop this, we are passing a resolution, then it's like, Netanyahu, it's like he throws his toys out of the pram. How dare they say this, to say that East Jerusalem is occupied territory. How dare they? So which do you want? Do you want to go by what the UN says or do you not?
I'm not Netanyahu. I'm not speaking for Israel. I'm speaking for myself. I'm speaking for our debate right here. And we keep on bringing up the Geneva Convention. We keep on bringing up laws. We keep on bringing up international accords. We keep on bringing up international ideas. So the fact is, if we're going to go according to international ideas, then the fact is that Israel's not a rogue state, specifically because internationally they are not looked at as a rogue state. And that's it, cut and dry. You can't argue that.
Okay. All right. Well, I hear you. And that's fine. I understand that the international community doesn't consider it one. No. But many people in the UK and America do. I don't know
if they'd say rogue state.
Oh, they do. Yeah, they do. Seriously,
never,
no, they do.
I've
A
never,
lot of people do. No, a lot of
I'd
people
never
do.
heard that
A lot of
before
people
until
do.
I saw this debate. I've heard Israel's not
Okay.
peaceful. I've heard Israel is a settler. I've heard
Well,
Israel is an occupation. Never heard rogue state, but I think I've
no,
pretty much proved that they aren't a rogue
you
state.
do a bit of googling. I mean, the thing is, like, the U.S. government consider the CIA a worthy, honourable institution. Well, a lot of Americans think they're a bunch of criminals. Absolute, like gangsters.
Freedom of speech. Anybody can think whatever they want. Anybody can say whatever they want. That's
absolutely,
that's why we're able to have this.
Okay, but listen,
that's why we're able to have this debate.
Okay. Mo, let me just bring in something that makes me feel that Israel is a rogue state. Okay,
let's make this our final.
A couple of weeks. Okay. A couple of weeks ago, we had an incident here where an employee of the Israeli embassy in London, his name was Shir Masot, was filmed by an undercover reporter working for Al Jazeera TV. He was filmed talking about at least two of our government ministers. Okay. And he said that he would like to, referring to one of them in particular, Sir Alan Duncan, who is the our deputy foreign minister. He said that he would like that he's been causing trouble, and that he would like to take him down, rather. I think he said. And he said similar things about what. Okay, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? He said, I'd like to take him. I'd like to take him down. Is what he said. Okay. It doesn't really matter whether it's take him out, take him down. Whatever. I mean, you could interpret either thing in different ways, but most people will see that meaning that he wants to destroy his reputation and make him resign from his post. In other words, he is trying to criminally, really, interfere and undermine our parliamentary democracy and our machine of government. Now, it was in the newspapers for a short period of time. In fact, he called our Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson. He called him an idiot, I think, something like that. Suffice it to say that if a Russian and this chap, apparently he was his role was he was a senior political officer working at the Israeli embassy in the employ of Mark Regev, who's the ambassador, of course. The whole thing was brushed under the carpet. There's a little announcement about it in Parliament that the ambassador has apologized and we forgot the whole matter. Imagine if that had been a Russian representative who'd said that, or an Iranian one, there'd be absolute hell to pay. But this is it. This is why I believe Israel is a rogue state, because it just gets away with anything. It's all just brushed under the carpet. And the other thing is, Shmoo, how come Israel takes part in the Eurovision Song Contest?
I don't understand what that has to do with anything.
Nothing at all. It's just I just thought I'd put it in because it's just always bugged me.
I have no idea. I don't know why they take part in Eurovision, and no, I don't watch the Eurovision. I'd only heard of it once before. No. I don't know what Eurovision is.
Anyway, it's just it's a daft pop song contest. It's
like American Idol.
You've got to watch it with a sick bucket next to you.
I don't watch those things. I watch.
Anyway, look,
ESPN. ESPN.
I don't watch them. Don't get me wrong. But look, I think we've had a good chat. We haven't lost our temper. That's good, because we've got to talk. People have got to talk. I would, just try and reach out to you, really. And I study lots, and some of the things that you've said to me, I will look at some of these things, of course. But I hope that you will also look at some of the things that I've talked about as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mike, correct?
All right, mate. Yeah, Mike, that's it.
Well,
yeah.
Mike, I just want to say, as a resident debater of Call Out, I want to really thank you for this debate today. I think I really think you made a lot of key points. I wrote down a lot of what you said with this trusty pen I've been playing with. I'm definitely going to look these things up. I really, honestly, I appreciate you taking out your time today to have this debate and to speak to me and to get your points across and allow me to get my points across. I'd love to see you back on here again whenever you want to have another debate. Hit me up. I'm good for it. Anything
Okay.
Israel, you know, anything. Right. We could debate the Eurovision. I don't mind. But listen, again, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, mate. Yeah. All right.
Have a good one.
Yeah. All right. Nice night. Yeah. Cheers.